What's shaking, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about how to position yourself on a sales call so that you don't get steamrolled by your prospect and you don't lose your positioning as the expert that you are. So this conversation is sort of going to dovetail off of the conversation that we had on Monday. So if you guys haven't had a chance to go check that video out after this one, go check out Monday's video because it's going to talk to you about how to respond when a client starts nickel and diming you. And so this is a topic that's very passionate about, that Oase and I are very passionate about, and we want to help you guys today. Make sure that you maintain the frame and maintain your positioning during a sales call so that you close more sales at the end of the day, right? So always, let's talk about what you need to do before you actually get on a sales call. What do you need to do as the person that's going to conduct that call?
Yeah. And look, before I dive into that, I want to remind everyone in the audience, whoever's going to be watching this, that Henry and I have both been in the trenches. We've both had our own encounters with clients that have taken advantage of us in the past when we came off as, with lack of expertise or when we didn't have a framework. So I always talk about the mindset training first. And obviously that mindset also comes from a good amount of preparation and a good amount of framework. So going in there, knowing your worth, knowing your value, and working on that, knowing what you bring to the table. So that's where I start off with.
And how do you do that, like physically? Do you write it down? Do you have an outline that you prepare prior to talking to somebody? I mean, one of the things that I learned, that preparation is the key to any sales conversation. Like, you really got to understand who it is that you're talking to. And what I like to do is I like to have a client fill out a little questionnaire before I even get on a call with them. So I have an understanding of where they're at, where their headspace is at, and what they're actually trying to accomplish. And then this way we can have a more informed conversation. And this is so easy to do. Like, some of the tools out there and the tech out there, like Typeform and Woofu and what are some of those other form builders, like
SurveyMonkey,
SurveyMonkey,
things like that, yeah.
Super simple tech to use to get that out to your prospect before you actually have a conversation. Real quick, before we continue, I just want to give a shout out to Amy. Amy's in the house. We got some other live viewers in the house. Let us know what our audio sounds like. I want to make sure I'm coming across a little fuzzy in my earphones, but I want to make sure that you can hear me and Oase clearly. So if you could just drop in the comments, yep, hear you loud and clear, that would be really, really helpful. I just want to make sure that you got, okay, sounds good to me. All right, excellent. Let's continue. So what sort of what are you doing behind the scenes, like physically?
So what I'm doing behind the scenes, so, again, good question. Like you set up your forms and that questionnaire. So I have a very similar setup. But what I have found is that not every question gets answered. And perhaps that's something that I need to, reformulate this upcoming year. However, when I go in without them knowing what the questions are going to be, what I've found is that I'm able to get or elicit a much better response. It's because some of those questions they don't know, and they're not going to know the immediate answer. They're just, I think it's going to be more of like a bias If that's something, I guess that's probably the best way for me to articulate that is they're coming in with more of a surface level response, rather than something that I can actually help them uncover. So during that initial meeting, it's not for me to discuss design and branding and all of that. It's really to figure out exactly what's going on in their business and where they're trying to get to. And so those questions have follow-up questions that, again, now you start filling out those follow-up questions in your questionnaire, they're never going to get through it. So
Right.
it's got to become conversational. I thought about this conversation earlier today, and I was like, look, it's and someone else actually had a poll on LinkedIn around what do you look for or what do you do when you go into a sales conversation? What type of skills are needed in a sales conversation? Is it a framework, or is it do you go and be authentic, or do you need like very specific sales skills? I think it's a combination of soft skills and a framework. And
Oh,
those soft skills need to be able to, it's being able to read your counterpart, being able to empathize with them along the way. I think is
mhm.
huge, to be able to label what they're going through, label their struggles.
Yeah, and have them do most of the talking. I think that's how you maintain control. It sounds counterintuitive. It sounds like, oh no, you got to be the one leading the conversation. No. Well, yeah, you need to be leading it, but there's different ways you can lead it, right? You could talk the whole time, or you can ask very pointed questions and make sure that the prospect is doing most of the talking. Listen, all of you guys know by now, I like to talk. And I used to talk myself right out of deals left and right. I mean, it was awful. I was on such a lose streak. It was getting to the point where I was like, I don't think I could do this. Like, maybe I should just go punch a clock somewhere. But there was something in me that said, nope, keep practicing, keep figuring it out. And now when I get on calls, I don't do much talking at all other than to make sure that I'm asking the right questions. Because guys, at the end of the day, how can you help somebody if you're doing all the talking? What are you learning?
Exactly.
What are you learning from how do you know what their pains and challenges are if you're the one talking?
Master the art of silence.
Tell my 4-year-old son that. See what he says.
But it works. Like there's certain questions that you ask and you just silent for 3 seconds, and you'll get such a lengthy response to that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to practice just that piece for such a long time.
Yeah.
And it works.
Well, here's the thing. It does take a lot of work. And I think the best salespeople on the planet are the ones that can shut up and listen and ask those questions. Now, again, a lot easier said than done. So how do you do it? So I want to get a little tactical here for a second and start with self-awareness. Just simple self-awareness. As you're talking, as the sales conversation is taking place, just see if you can do this next time. Look at it from a third person perspective and say, am I talking too much? Am I asking the right questions? Like, you can do that quickly in your head right there on the call. Right there on the call. Like, and then you immediately start to recalibrate, and then you say, all right, wait. Before we go any further, I got a question. And now that's it. That's the recalibration process right there. And then you pass the hot potato, if you will, right? Back over to your prospect, because you got to get them to explain to you where they're at. Now, let's get into this conversation before we run. I don't want to run out of time. How do you maintain your authority and your expertise and that expert position on the call, or how do you even create it in the first place?
Mhm. Okay, so I talked about, or I mentioned this in the last live stream. The way that I do this, and I begin my calls, essentially you're setting the tone for that entire call or for that entire meeting and that entire engagement, so to speak. And it's basically by starting off and telling them part of my process on this call, or part of my process in general, is to determine alignment between me and my prospective clients. And so we're here to start this meeting to determine whether you and I are going to be a good fit. And if by the end of the meeting we determine that we're not a good fit to work with one another, I'll be more than happy to refer you to someone else that might be help you and that might be able to help you out in a much better way.
So keyword process. When you say to me, I have a process, I have a method to my madness that gets my clients the results that they're looking for, and it starts with XYZ, right away in my head, I say, all right, this is not their first rodeo. This is not their first rodeo. So I'll give you a real life example. I had somebody hit my website a couple days ago, and they put in the chat bot, what's the process to, learn more about working with you? And so I wasn't able to hit the chat bot, but this person put their email in. So that gets an email sent to me and I could respond via email, right? So this person's a physician and he's looking to create a personal brand, right? Like, sounds like to me from afar that this is like an ideal client for me, because I like working with doctors, because I feel like they have some great passion for their work, right? And I feel like a lot of doctors out there, they don't get the respect that they deserve, and they're fabulous doctors, but they don't really have an online presence, for whatever reason. But anyway, he reached out to me and he said, I'm interested in working with you, but I need to know your process and what the expected cost may be. Okay. So right away I see the word cost and I flip it for investment. That's just a simple thing that you could do moving forward. Nobody likes the cost of things, but they are willing to invest in things if they believe it. So start using that specific language and you'll see a difference, right?
Words matter.
So here's what I wrote him yesterday. I said, hey, sir, I don't want to say his name in case he's watching, but hey, sir, I appreciate you reaching out. I said, I think I got the email right here because he just wrote me back. Where are you, buddy? Yeah. So the first step of the process begins with an assessment. Okay. This is going to help me understand exactly what you're trying to accomplish. That initial assessment is $499. Once we complete the assessment together, I will have a better understanding of what the expected investment would be. Okay. I can tell you this. An average project can range from $25,000 to $40,000, depending on the scope of work. To book an assessment, here's the link. And then I put here, I'm only working with 14 clients this year, so space is extremely limited. If you have any other questions, please let me know. So he wrote me back, and I'm not going to read his email now, but I'm curious to see what he says. But do you see how I laid that out? Here's what I do first. Here's what it costs. Here's what you could expect. And truthfully, this is the amount of people I work with per year. If you want to be one of them, book now. I didn't say that, but I want to let him know that this isn't a design factory.
Yeah.
Right.
High volume, low cost. You're not in that space.
Right. And so here's the one thing that I really want. You mentioned it before, and I want to put a lot of emphasis on it today. You mentioned something earlier about knowing your worth and being confident in your price points. Listen, I remember people coming to me saying, "You're way too cheap, dude. What are you doing charging that low?" And I couldn't see it. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't get those numbers out of my mouth because it sounded insane to me until I started practicing. It sounds so corny, but I started practicing in the mirror. I started practicing I would go on Zoom, but by myself, and I would start to practice looking into the camera and saying the big numbers. But it doesn't matter whether or not the numbers come out of your mouth. It's whether or not you believe you're worth that.
Absolutely.
And that's what it comes down to.
And lose your attachment to the outcome. When you start speaking those big numbers, you have to believe in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But stop becoming so attached to a specific outcome that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that you're driven towards that, but the minute you lose your attachment to it, and this is again from my own experience last year, yes, I established an understanding of what my worth was last year and then moving into this year. However, in addition to that, every single time now I was able to pitch a specific number for a specific engagement, I no longer attached any emotion to whatever the outcome might be, good or bad. And that requires a hell of a lot of practice.
That is a tremendous skill to have as a business person. I have a business partner that has 0% emotion in any of his decisions. And I respect him for that. And I appreciate that so much because somebody's got to be the one that looks at it with no emotion attached and gives an honest response. I tend to be very emotional around my decision making because I'm a passionate person, and that's fine. There's no right or wrong here. There really isn't. It's what can you work with to your advantage, right? Well, for my partner, it's no emotion. For me, that emotion is going to help me decide whether or not this is something worth doing, right? I look at it from an emotional side. He looks at it from a logical side. It works. I mean, because we get it actually is a great advantage on our part because we get to see both sides, where 9 times out of 10 you only get to see one. But let me ask you this. I want to switch gears here for a second. Have you ever been on a sales conversation where the prospect says something to you and you're so taken aback, you might even get offended of what they said? And now you feel the blood start to boil and those emotions start to rage, if you will. How do you keep cool? How do you not let your ego get the best of you? And how do you maintain that position of expert?
So this to me, I always go back to Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And in that type of a moment, Henry, for me, it's all about like I said, mastering the art of silence. But before you master the art of silence, like slow it down, breathe, right? When I talked about the whole knowing your worth, what if someone tells you, Henry, hey, I don't think you're worth it. I don't think what you're telling me is worth that amount. Is that going to, at one point in your career, in this entire journey of yours, would that get you off your step?
Yeah, I think initially it would, because like you're on the conversation, you're having this conversation and you're not expecting something so straight up.
Yeah.
Right. So how would you respond to that? I mean, have you ever gotten that before?
Of course. Or you're too expensive, right? I mean, how many times both of us have probably gotten that same response?
Sure.
You're too expensive. Well, today I'm going to say, compared to what? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'll start with that. Or if they have said something else that is really confrontational, again, going back to some of the tactics on never split the difference, say the last 3 words, mirror what they have just said, just so they can, expand on what they just said. Because maybe from their side, from your counterpart side, it's not their intention to demean you in any way. That might not be their intention. It's just how you're interpreting it, how you're receiving it, right? So don't build that story. Slow it down and repeat the last 3 words of what they said and allow for them to expand on that. Take that conversation where you want it to go.
Yeah, and they're going to give you more information when you do that mirroring. When you do that mirroring move, you're going to say, "Don't think I'm worth it," and then they're going to start rattling off again. And instead of you being afraid to ask that question or mirror like that, look at it as an advantage, because now they're going to give you even more ammunition that you could use against them.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
exactly.
the way you got to look at it. That's the way you got to look at it. I mean, there's another way you could look at it too. Like if somebody comes to me and says, your work's overpriced, I don't think you're worth it. You can ask a question along the lines of like, listen, have you ever been burned before? Have you ever got something that, you thought you were getting X, but you got Y, and what happened there? And let them talk about that. Right. Yeah. And then you say something about, well, what if you did get what was expected? Would you feel like you got burnt? No, I wouldn't. Well, it's not about price, right? It's about getting what you are asking for at the quality that you're asking for.
Exactly.
Right.
But so qualification. Go ahead.
No, finish.
No, I was going to say qualification is a 2-way road. It's not a single road where they're qualifying you against 3 or 4 others, right? We talk about branding over here, and really what it all comes down to is how do you set yourself apart? And these are some of the ways that you set yourself apart. And again, it's not just necessarily the pricing issue. When you're qualifying them, you can ask them, you can start, or not start, but I mean, part of your conversation should be, so why should we be working together? What are you bringing to the table to enable the success of this project? Because my process works this way. Mm-hmm. How are you fitting into that process? Well, now you turn it around on them.
Yes. And I like that. And here's another thing though. If you've done the groundwork first, very rarely will you get that response. Okay. So here's my question to everybody today. What are you doing before the sales conversation to showcase your authority, your expertise, and your position in the marketplace? So that when they get on a call with you, they got the butterflies in their belly, not you. So let me share with you a couple of things that I do. Hopefully you can try to implement these and maybe brand it to what you do. But when you book an assessment with me, I have you pay first. That's number one, because I'm not wasting my time with somebody that's just trying to learn more about what I do. That's what my website's for, right? Yeah. If you want to talk to me, that's going to cost you money. Okay. Especially one-on-one. Number two, when you book that call, I'm going to have you fill out a questionnaire, and I am going to get some information from you. So again, we can have an informed conversation. And I want to know questions like, why Henry? And I have that as a question. Like, Henry can only work with so many people. Why do you want to work with him? I want to hear it from them. Right? I want them to tell me. Right? So after I get that submission, there's something else on that page though. when they're filling out that questionnaire, there's something on that page that I tell them to do. I go watch these 4 case studies before you get on the call with me. I want you to see the kind of work we do and the results that we get for people. Okay. I want you to know that after working with me, I had a client in 18 months establish $1 million net worth. That's what I want. Because that's what's going to really show them, like, holy shit, this guy really gets people going.
Yeah.
Right. So they're already pre-framed before they get on the call with me of what I'm capable of doing. Okay. The social media content that you put out. Right. That's so important. Now, I'm not talking about, don't get hung up on like the views, the number of views and the number of comments, because listen, my views are shit on YouTube, and I'll be the first to tell you. Right. But there's a reason why there's 2 Comma Club awards hanging on my wall. It's not because of the amount of views I got. That's for sure. So don't get caught up. Don't be, oh, that only got 12 views. That's a bad post. No, I am judging your content at every post because I want to see your point of view. And if your point of view can help me, that's what I'm looking for. And how confident are you in what you're saying? That's what I want to know. So my social media content is going to help me position myself for the sales call, and the actual process that I tell a client to do to get on that sales call is very important. So pay attention to, like, look between the lines here, guys. The fact that I even have a process to get on a phone call with me is extremely important. How many people get an inquiry off of a Instagram DM and jump on the phone with them right then and there on the spot? To me, I don't think that's a good move. It shows that you're sitting around waiting for people to reach out, and that you ain't got anything better to do. Even if I had the time, always, I would tell them, book it 2 days from now because I want to do my homework on you.
Exactly. Thank you. I preach that so much in so many aspects of my life, and I have people around me that some agree with me and some will disagree. But look, you have to create a sense of appreciation for your time. You have to create a sense of appreciation for what you bring to the table in every single way. And I have quoted this over and over again, but what's obtained easily is esteemed too lightly. It's dearness only that gives everything its value.
Sure. Although you got
Don't
that
make yourself easily available.
You got that memorized.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Remember, I dropped that while we were in Austin, man.
Yes. I love it. Here's another one that when people say, why are you so expensive and so on, like, if you want to kid around a little bit and get a laugh, maybe not, but you could tell them something along the lines of, like, out of 7 billion people in this world, there's only one of me. And there's only one Henry Kaminski in this world that's going to do it the way I'm going to do it. That's why I'm that expensive, because there's only one in this planet. Period. Right? Have you looked at yourself in the mirror that way in a while? Have you ever looked at yourself as a diamond in a rough? Have you ever looked at yourself as 1 in 7 billion? Or do you keep looking at yourself as one of many, or a me too? And here's something that I really want to stress. Be careful of who you surround yourself and these little microcosms on the internet that you start to plant yourself in.
Exactly. Yeah.
because
Get
you will
yourself out of
start.
those echo chambers.
Yes, those echo chambers are horrible. You start to sound like them. You start to act like them. You start to do like them. Listen, I'm only saying this because I did it. I came into this internet marketing world and I was like, oh, it's good. It's the best thing since sliced bread. And I really immersed myself into it. And I was like, oh my God, this place sucks. And I'm sorry for all you internet marketers out there, but that's how I really feel. Like, unless you have a real expertise, stop trying to peddle other people's shit and stop trying to make it yours. I had somebody come to me the one day. He had some branding work that he wanted done, and I did the branding work for him. And then afterwards, I said, "Run me through your program." And guess what it was, Oasis? It was regurgitated Tony Robbins shit. I was like, I heard this shit from Tony Robbins like 2 years ago at his
Wow.
live event.
It wasn't
That's
even
what your
repurposed or anything. Wow.
no. That's what your program is. I was mind blown.
Unbelievable.
So we got some questions here. Chad Steele. Oh, let's go to Amy real quick. So have you seen a correlation between the proper price and the outcome? My example is that when things cost more, people use the advice in a bigger way. I say this, and I got this from Russell, no one else. This is where I first heard it. When people pay a premium, they pay attention. So the more people pay, they got more skin in the game. They're definitely going to pay attention more. There's a lot more on the line, right?
They will implement more.
Yeah. If like, I'll give you a quick example. I used to buy like $600 shoes, right? I would treat those shoes better than I would treat some people because they were expensive. But then I had my $30 knockers that I would wear to the gym. And I wouldn't care if I stepped in a pile of shit 3 times that day. I would have just threw them out that day because they were only $30. So, like, these are the examples that I'm making. Yeah, I'm making fun of this, but it's very true.
Absolutely.
When you have more skin in the game, you're going to pay more attention.
Yeah.
You're going to be a lot more strategic.
Yeah.
So
You're going to be more invested into making sure that succeeds.
exactly. So listen, let's talk about a branding project real quick. Oh, I could do your website and funnel for $2,500. And the person says, okay, that's a steal. Let's do it. What if it doesn't work? What if it's shit? Client's going to say, well, I only spent $2,500 on it. Who cares? Well, what's that say about you?
Yeah.
As the vendor?
You're dispensable. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Replaceable.
Yeah. So when I tell clients, we're looking at a $25,000 to $50,000 gig here. Like, if your business isn't worth that, if you think that you're not going to be able to make that money back with your business, then you got a bigger problem.
Yeah.
It's not a website. It's not a funnel. Got it?
Exactly.
So that's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. If I want to make $500,000 this year, if I want to make $2.3 million this year, what am I going to have to spend to get it? Not $2,500 and probably not $25,000. Probably going to be more than that. It's what's the word? Effort. Whether it's physical or monetary. It's the same thing. Chad Steele, would you have a payment option on your website be a good option to have for clients? We just had this conversation an hour ago. Me and a client were talking about this. But before, I want to shut up because I want to give my voice a rest. What would you do about a payment
Having
option?
a payment option on the website Again, depends on what you're selling, right? Like, I mean, okay, I'll put Henry on in the spotlight right now. You have a brand assessment, that gateway that gets them into a much larger engagement. So if you have a payment option around that, I think it works. But then, would you have a payment option around a $50,000 engagement? I don't know. I mean, again, maybe that's my self-limiting belief, but I haven't seen a transaction of $50,000, or $50,000 plus show up and say, okay, well, we're ready to pay this directly without even talking to someone, right? Typically, there's going to be a conversation that happens prior to that, and then you can send them some sort of an e-doc or an electronic payment, whatever it is, at that point in time. But something that's like an e-commerce type of a payment portal where they're checking out based off of selecting, a specific type of an engagement. Good idea. I don't know if that's going to be feasible. I don't know if that's sustainable.
Here's my take on payment options. I think it's a case by case basis, especially if you're talking high ticket stuff. All right. I want to focus here on a second, and we can talk about payment options for a couple other things, like, because I know Apple does a payment option for their phone, because I just bought a new phone. You could pay this off in you could do a monthly payment plan, or you could just pay the whole damn thing off, right? So there's different things, but let's talk about a service that's a substantial amount of money. We're talking 25, 50, 60, $100,000, right? What kind of payment options would you put together for that? And here's what I say. You really have to assess the customer to see what makes the most sense. Because I've had people pay me $50K, no problem. Here's the money. Let's get started, without blinking an eye. And then I've had people that said, I got 30 grand, but it's going to take me 10 months to pay it off. What do you do, Henry? What do you do? Do you tell that guy that can't afford the 30K to go shoe? Here's what I do. If that person shows me that they are committed to the project and willing to see it through to the end, then I will put together a payment plan. Now, it's not going to be a 10-month payment plan. I could promise you that. I will never do a 10-month payment plan ever again. All right? And I say this on January 5th, 2022. But I will put together a payment plan that will help the financial burden if they are committed. But I'm not doing it for any Tom, Dick, or Harry. Okay? What I like is a confident and competent client. What do I mean by that? I want a confident client because I want them to trust me with their children, with their business. Okay? I want a competent client that is competent enough to have the funds ready to go. That's also going to bleed into the confidence as well. Because why would you do something that you don't feel 100% on? Okay, that's something that we really need to talk about, that I know I'm going way over, but that's something that you really got to pay attention to. Like, if there is an inkling of doubt, I would advise that you don't do it until that inkling of doubt has been smashed. Every big investment I've ever made, there wasn't a doubt. There wasn't a doubt. It was not if this works, it's when this works. The investments that I had that doubt in my head, tragic endings. Tragic. So I want a confident and competent client, and a competent client that needs a 10 payment plan. It scares me.
It's risky.
Especially if you feel like they don't have it all there, or this is just another fly-by-night project for them. That scares me, man. That scares me. So, an option plan, I'm not a fan of them. I'll be honest with you. I want to work with clients that could afford me. I'm not going to nickel and dime here. This is the price. If you can't afford it, then go find something cheaper. But I'm not willing to lower my price for that. I'm not playing that game. There is a ton of options out there. Maybe I'm not the right one.
Yeah.
And that's something that you really got to own.
Absolutely.
Hard to do.
But that's why we're talking about setting yourself apart. All of these questions, this entire conversation, this is what it comes down to. Once that client is in front of you and you're talking to them, you're still being set up and you're still being measured against probably 3 or 4 others that they might be considering at that point in time.
Yep.
Regardless of what business you're in. And now it's how you conduct that conversation that will set you apart from the rest of them. And the question that I always ask.
Oh, go ahead.
No, the question that I always ask is, if you fail to differentiate yourself in that crowded market space, can you afford to be overlooked?
That's good, dude. That's good. So this is a good segue into what I want to talk about next. What happens when you feel the prospect pulling away? What do you do? Do you chase him?
Absolutely not. I don't chase. At one point, I used to.
What's the old Jim Rohn quote? When you chase the birds, you leave the farm.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
When you chase the birds, you leave the farm. Vulnerable.
Exactly.
So
you got to be busy planting your seeds.
Exactly. So listen. And what's the other one? You can't teach a duck eagle school.
I can't remember that one. Oh, you can't teach a duck eagle school. Yeah.
Something like that. Right? You can't enroll a duck into eagle school. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
By nature. Yeah.
So let's wrap this up because we're way over, but I see the attendance and it's so high. That's why I wanted to keep the conversation going a little bit. Here's the big takeaways of today. One is, if you want to position yourself on a sales call, first and foremost, you got to be prepared. You got to know who you're talking to, and you got to do your homework on that person. Go as deep as you can with the time that you have to get a better sense of who that person is, professionally and personally. Okay? Because you'll impress them when you start talking about things that they have said in their content from 6 months ago. Oh, you've done your homework on me. Yeah, I have, because I want to know who the hell I'm talking about. If I'm going to spend the next 90 days with you and I'm going to get into bed with you in business, I want to know who the hell you are.
Yeah.
Right? Second thing is make sure that you know your worth. Make sure that you're confident in your price points, that you're confident in your deliverable, that you know your product, that you obsessed over your product and service to the point where you know it's the best it can be at that moment of time. Because when you speak about it, it's going to come out in your voice. It's going to come out in your energy, and that's going to sell the product. Not what you say, how you say it. Right? Again, check yourself while you're talking to people. If you feel like you're talking too much, recalibrate with a question. If you start getting offensive comments from a prospect, which if you've done your homework right, you shouldn't get those. But if you do, Use the mirroring technique. Just respond back to them and say, I'm not worth it. Or that was a good one. I want to leave it there. And let them talk. That's going to help you with more ammunition to use against them in the conversation. But you have to maintain the way you keep control of the sales conversation is by questioning, not by talking. Yeah. The point of
look, I want to add on to that, because you said that, again, you use it as ammunition, but more importantly, you can empathize with some of the things that they're saying. Once they add to that story, once they expand on that, now you get to hear their concerns. And now you can go back and, again, use some additional tactics from Never Split the Difference, which is one, there's tactical empathy. It seems like you value this. It seems like you struggle with this.
This is important.
I understand where you're coming from, right?
Yeah.
I was actually in a call with a friend of mine just about an hour ago, right before this live stream started. She interviewed yesterday, and I was like, hey, next time you have an interview, I'm going to just take you through 3 or 4 different sales-oriented questions. She was like, why? I was like, you know what? It's the exact same thing. Exact same thing. Guess what's going to end up happening when you're lined up against 4 or 5 other candidates in that job situation? You ask your interviewer, tell me some of the challenges that you guys are encountering right now. Because how many other candidates come in and ask that?
That's right.
Why should someone come here? Why should someone come and work here? Right?
That's it.
What would enable me to succeed in this role? It's the same thing over and over again. The formula doesn't change.
No. But that's how you keep your position. It's practice, guys. You're not going to get this on the first try. Tell me, unless you're seasoned and you know what you're doing, but I'm talking about the folks out there that know that they could be selling at a higher price point, but don't have the confidence because they don't know how to position themselves properly. Or I'm talking to the person that keeps attracting the tire kickers and the bottom feeders and the people that want a 10 payment plan for a $2,000 product. I'm talking to you guys. Like, stop tolerating that and get out there and tell the universe who you are, what you stand for, and what your level of engagement is, and be proud of it. That's what's going to get you those bigger clients. That's what's going to get you those clients that'll fork over a $25,000 check without batting an eye. I wish I had more time to show you more examples. But the more you raise your standard, the less bullshit you tolerate. And you'll see how quickly that bullshit repels. It's like they won't even get 10 feet from you because they know you're not going to tolerate their nonsense. It's you could use this in any part of your life too, not just business. Right. Dating, personal life, whatever. You're going to constantly get these people if you constantly accept it, or you constantly forget about how good you really are. Right? Remember, you're 1 in 7 billion. That's why you're so damn expensive. That's it. So I could talk about this forever, bro. But we got to go.
It's the same thing. Set healthy boundaries and protect your energy. That's my closer for this.
Say it again. Say it again.
Set healthy boundaries and protect your energy. That spans out to everything, whether it be in personal or your professional life.
That's it. I love that, always. I love that. Kathleen Young. She's a newbie. What's going on, Kathleen? Yes, such great advice. Thank you always. So that's awesome, awesome stuff. So there you have it, my friends. Another live stream in the books. So again, I want to see you closing more sales. I want you to use this information to your advantage, because we all have something special here. We all do. It's just a matter of us being able to see it for ourselves and owning that shit. That's what's going to really separate you from everybody else. Okay. Any other questions or you need more help with this, make sure you book an assessment with me. You can get that on my website at uniquedesignz.net right here. Last but not least, we do this every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube yet, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure you're following. And if you have any topics that you want a Wasted Eye to discuss in the future, drop them in the comments. We'll scoop them up and we'll create them for future content. We love you guys. We want to see you guys win this year. So let's make it happen. Take it easy, my friends. I'll catch you next week. And you see what happens? You see what happens? I hit the wrong damn button. Catch you next week.